John Arhan with Pulsing Cinema, and we've got to talk about this movie that I just discovered a few days ago. It's an unusual film with an even more unusual production history. It's The Evil Within. I think it was originally called The Storyteller or something else here. The sole directorial effort of Andrew Getty, the late Andrew Getty, one of the heirs to the John Paul Getty billionaire fortune. Andrew Getty started shooting this film in 2002, and he died in 2015. He was found in his mansion, in his bathroom, a hemorrhaging ulcer, and he died. According to his girlfriend, he was involved in drugs. They found methamphetamines in his system. It was a big kind of a tabloid thing. TMZ and the like ran stories on it. But all of those years, he was working on this film, apparently. He poured his own money and his life into this film. And now it has, in early 2017, it has finally been released. I think in late 2016, they finally put it together and it was sold. And now it's out on video on demand. It's on iTunes and Amazon and probably some other places. And within the next couple of months, there's a DVD release of the film scheduled. And it's an unusual film. It was, it was a passion project for this guy. He spent, 15, it's taken 15 years for it to come out. Even after his death, the producers and the people involved with it wanted to get this thing released as kind of a testament to Andrew. And it's a wild movie. The movie stars Frederick Koehler, who is, at that point, Frederick Koehler was just graduating college. Now he's a 40-year-old actor with, over a decade of television and film credits under his belt. But at that point, he was just a young actor. Frederick Koehler plays this mentally disabled man who lives in this mansion with his brother, played by Patrick Flannery. And there is this, mice and men, Dominic and Eugene type of thing where this guy, this handsome guy, is taking care of his brother, and there's some secrets between them, the reason why he feels indebted to taking care of his brother. And Patrick Flannery has a girlfriend played by Dina, Meyer, who is pressuring him to marry him, she wants to get married, but she doesn't want to live in the same mansion as his disabled brother, and she's like, I want a baby, a little baby, not the 30-year-old masturbating kind, And so there's all of this disturbing stuff, and we find that at the very beginning of the film, the disabled brother, Frederick's character, is being plagued by nightmares, by dreams, and eventually within his dreams, this demon visits him, and the demon also comes in the form of this mirror. His brother puts a mirror in his room, and he begins to stare into the mirror and talk to the mirror, and the mirror begins to tell him, the demon in the mirror tells him that in order to fix his brain, he has to go out and become a serial killer and get involved in murders. So it's this movie is, I would say it's kind of part of this genre of what I'd call demon in my head movies. It's movies where you have one central character who is seeing these hallucinations and dreams and visions of death and destruction and demons, and the demons are telling him to go out and kill people, and so they do kill people, and then it leads to even more hallucinogenic, strange dream sequences. And that's what this film is. The trailer is crazy and strange and hallucinogenic. The demon is played by Michael Berryman, this is one of Michael Berryman's. He looks scary in this film. Michael Berryman looks, he has this, it's Michael Berryman, but he's also made up as this dark and ashen character where the only thing you can really see is the whites of his eyes, and the rest is this dark, black, gray, sooty makeup, and he comes off as this oh, it's a horrible presence. I mean, the poster art, I mean, it's, scary. But most of the time, he's only in a few sequences. Most of the time, it's Frederick talking to himself, and in real life, Frederick, the disabled Frederick Koehler character, is like disabled, and he talks, and he can't use big words and everything. But in his head, the demon is like this, perfectly composed character. This very he tells him weird, strange things, and it's quite a movie. It's quite a movie, The film is full of these strange hallucinogenic dream sequences, and apparently that was one of the things that Andrew spent years making. He spent years making these incredible camera rigs and special effects makeup and doing things himself. There's a great article in the Hollywood Reporter which is one of the producers, who was one of the main people behind putting this together to the point where it could be released. He talks about what Frederick went. I mean, apparently he poured all of his money and time into this film, and he estimates that he spent almost between $4 and $6 million of his own money on this film. And then the budget on the IMDb is listed at $4 million, but that's really, I mean, we don't even know if all of the money is from Andrew, or maybe it's from a different source. We don't know if he pulled in some other producer who then began pouring money. We don't know. As far as the look of the film, the money is on the screen. The film is not an amateur-looking production. Most of these Demon in My Head movies are made by one person, and they're these singular works of one guy, and it's like sometimes, a lot of the 80s and 90s like shot on video movies, they're about like one guy, and he's having all these hallucinations in his brain, and he has to become a serial killer. There's a lot of movies kind of like that are kind of vaguely like that. And the one in my that sticks out is a movie called The Disturbance. Tim Ritter made a lot of movies like that. Truth or Dare and Killing Spree are kind of vaguely like that. They're disturbed guys with hallucinations in their head. They're telling them to kill people and do stuff. But unlike those other films, this is like an heir to a billionaire, so he has millions of dollars to pour into this movie and all this time. And so it's like, what would this type of movie look like if it was, a multi-million-dollar production? And this is what it looks like. It looks very polished. I mean, and as far as the direction and the cinematography, there's nothing amateur about it. I mean, the way that he introduces scenes with camera moves and everything, it looks like a low budget studio film. It really does. In many cases, it does. As far as the look of the film, it's great, but then once you have the main dialogue scenes starting, you begin to realize something is wrong, because the dialogue, the story structure is very solid. I mean, the scenes and the construction of the scenes. This is not a film where it's obvious, and there is a story editor credit in the end credits, and so as far as the construction of the film, it's very obvious that it started with a solid script, and then they were eventually able to, through editing, because they've had years to edit this, they've constructed a very structurally sound film. But the dialogue and the way some of these scenes are constructed, the dialogue is like on a level of Birdemic or The Room. The recent films of Neil Breen have been brought up, what was it, Fateful Findings and all that stuff. The dialogue, it reminds me especially of The Room, because it's like dialogue that doesn't seem to be written by human beings, or dialogue that's not written by people who speak English as their first language, because there's all of this weird stuff. I mean, even the first the first scene between Sean Patrick Flannery and his brother, where he tries to convince him, you see this mirror, the stain in the mirror, it looks great, and the stain on the wall, it matches the stain in the mirror, the stain on the wall, and there's always like this little minutia that reminds me of like The Room, and then also like Ed Wood dialogue, where he would like bring out like in Plan 9 from Outer Space with like the Solarmanite bomb or whatever, where there's like a Solarmanite bomb would go here and there, and they're explaining all this shit that like the we're going to use the energy of the sun to blow up the Earth. That's it. Solarmite, blah, 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 explaining all this weird shit, and that's what they do in this film. There's this thing about books on tape, about a taxidermy how-to guide, books on tape, and Sean Patrick Flannery is like, why do you have this book on tape? And there's this scene at a restaurant, and the restaurants in the film, I don't know, maybe somebody in this film loved restaurants, because there's like literally like 12 or 15 scenes, like people going to restaurants, they're seeing their psychiatrist at a restaurant, they're going to the restaurant, let's go back to the restaurant, we're going to the restaurant, we're watching video at a restaurant, and restaurant, and there is this scene where they go to this outside restaurant, and Sean Patrick Flannery is getting books on tape from this dude who's wearing a t-shirt that says "fuck you" on it. It's like, what the? They're getting shipments of books on tape from a guy with a "fuck you" t-shirt, and you're like, what planet am I on where a guy would write a script about a book on, getting taxidermy books on tape from a guy at an outside restaurant with a "fuck you" t-shirt? What the fuck is going on? And also, who the fuck is listening to books on tape, on like cassette tape in 2000, even in 2002? Even by 2002, it was like books on CD. The iPod stuff wasn't quite there. Audible was not there. But I mean, even by 2002, 2003, cassette tape was like, on its way. It's like it was all CD, or this is very early iPod stuff. But I mean, it's like, and it almost feels like there was this idea where he had to every line of dialogue had to be like, it was so important to this guy Andrew Getty, that it had to be in there exactly, because there's all of this dialogue that is just like so strange and and I gained a newfound respect for Sean Patrick Flannery. Sean Patrick Flannery plays our lead character's brother, and Sean Patrick Flannery has to do this dialogue that is like, I mean, the dialogue just doesn't make sense. It's circular and strange and verbose, but he somehow makes it work. I mean, if you were to watch Sean Patrick Flannery and turn off the sound, it would be like a normal film. He's such a pro. He's such a high-level actor. It's Sean Patrick Flannery, Dina, Meyer, and you just gain a newfound respect for these guys these actors who really can take material that is, well, not bad. I mean, the structure of the film and the structure of the story and the camera work is like top-rate, professional. Like mainstream Hollywood, like horror movie stuff. But the dialogue is just is like on a nonsensical level, like times 10. I mean, most horror movie dialogue, when you really strip it apart, look at the script, it's very nonsensical. This film has incredibly nonsensical dialogue, and the strange stuff, again, stuff like Tommy Wiseau level, like Birdemic level. But these actors, these professional actors, take it to another level. I mean, there's Kim Darby is in it. Kim Darby plays this social services worker who wants to take the Frederick character away from Sean Patrick Flannery. And there's this ridiculous scene with Sean Patrick Flannery where Sean Patrick Flannery is like, you mean somebody can make a phone call, and with that phone call they can take a family member away, and Kim Darby's who is this plays this, I believe her name is called Mildy, or character name, and she's like this, stuck up, like, yes, they can. It's a good law, and people thought it would work. And it's like this, it's like no human in the history of humanity has ever had this conversation with, no film actor has ever had this conversation where they're debating the merits of state social services, protective services. I mean, it's wacky, but also, I mean, it's Kim Darby, who's been in a billion movies, and Sean Patrick Flannery, who's had major television series and film, and the scene is like shot. They're doing this 360 degree shot around them, where the 360 degree, it's in this room where they'll go around and the camera will go behind like an object that's directly in front, and then they'll do this invisible wipe to a different camera shot. So it's beautifully filmed. It's beautifully staged. I mean, there are scenes in this film that are really inventively shot. And the dream sequences in this film, the scenes where the lead character, Fred, goes into these dreams and has these hallucinations of murder and death. The film starts off with this incredible sequence of a carnival in the desert, where this Frederick, as a young boy, is pulled by his mother into this fun house, this this funhouse ride, and it's beautiful. It's beautifully looking and strange, and just like, you couldn't fault it, really. And then it goes deeper, and then there's a scene where the demon in this dream gets on top of Frederick, and he puts him on his belly on this bed, and unzips his. I mean, it's an incredible scene. This demon, Michael Berryman, the Michael Berryman demon, nails a zipper into the back of his body, into the back of his skin, and unzips his skin and climbs inside the guy. And it's the special effects and the way it's shot and the way it's edited is just top rate. I mean, this film has a combination of physical effects, like old school physical effects, like with mirrors, very, very reminiscent. It reminded me of Poltergeist 3, what they did with mirrors and people on different sides of mirrors. Those guys who are on VH1 all the time, and they're like famous twins. I forget their name exactly, but they're cast in the film, and obviously I realized why they were cast, because they can have one guy in the mirror and the other guy, and they can do like a mirror image gag, and so there's a lot of mirror gags. Again, reminiscent of Poltergeist 3, but it does it better than Poltergeist 3. It's better. Because it's a combination of like the physical effects, like a mirror set where you build a set on the other side of the mirror, and then you have, somebody will come out of the mirror and grab the guy that's looking at the mirror, we see the back of their head, that stuff like that. But there's also digital effects and stop motion effects that they use. So it's this combination of digital, physical stage effects, stop motion effects, and it just keeps you guessing. I mean, there are some scenes where you're like, how did they accomplish that? How did they do that? There's very few times in any kind of film, whether it's a low budget or a high budget, where you think, how do they do that? You're always, oh, that's a CGI. Oh, that's total CGI. And then other things, there's some things in this film that are very obvious. There's other that are like, how did they accomplish that? How did they do that? Especially there's these scenes where the demon tells the Fred character, take a mirror and point it at another mirror. So what it causes is this row of mirror reflections going on into infinity, and the very like 20 or 30 reflections down, the demon shows up and he starts killing one of the reflections. He starts hurting and strangling, and you're like, whoa, this is scary stuff. This is wild stuff. I mean, the lead actor, Fred Koehler, is incredible. He does an incredible performance where he is able to internalize the pain of this character, it's very much in the tradition of like of Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. He's that type of character, a little more higher functioning, but. And his backstory, which is, again, the big reveal at the end of the film and why he is the way he is and the connection to Sean Patrick Flannery is very interesting. You know, it's like Sean Patrick Flannery is like the Tom Cruise character to Frederick Koehler's Rain Man in this film. And but there's all these questions that I have in the movie. Like there's these weird things. Like first of all, the dialogue in the film, the audio recording, the dialogue sounds very rough. Now, granted, I was listening to it streaming on a streaming iTunes copy, and I was watching it on headphones. I was watching it on Bluetooth headphones. But the dialogue sounded really rough, and there's some scenes where, like, there's a scene with Kim Darby at the door where there's all this noise, and there's other dialogue just seems really rough. There's very little ADR in the film. There's the voiceover, Frederick Koehler's voiceover, which sounds professionally. It almost sounds like that stuff was recently recorded. They probably were able. According to Fred, he's like the only guy who really stuck around with the crew. But it sounds really rough, almost like, you know, they had the production dialogue. They shot the film with the dialogue, and then, you know, it sat in a box, and that's really the only recording that they couldn't bring the original actors back in order to do more ADR. I mean, that was it. The money was spent. They had this thing, and then they tried to do the best with it. And it's really, you can't really fault the film. I mean, from a production standpoint, there are little weird things like that. And then it would have been nice if Michael Berryman's voice had some kind of effect or was redone or something, because he's difficult to hear. And other things like that. Apparently, the film was really like unorthodox, and it was the making was very unorthodox. Like Andrew Getty wanted to he did color correction on the dailies, and like before it was even edited, which is actually not that really unusual, really. I mean, doing scratch color correction on dailies, but apparently it was full finished color correction before they even edited the film and stuff like that. And I wonder, when I look at the credits, the credits in this film is very weird, because they don't seem like they're laid out by someone who actually does credits. There's like all of these, every like production person, like a key grip on a film. There's usually 3 or 4 key grips. In this film, like there's 7 or 8. You know, it's like double, like everything. And obviously they shot this film, you know, over, you know, shot and edited over 15 years. So I'm assuming they had multiple crews. But I mean, usually even with like very long movies like Charlie's Family, there's not like 15 key grips. There's like, because they usually do a shoot, and then a few years later maybe do a few more, 1 or 2 more shoots. And then the time gap is just getting the money to finish and edit it. It's not going back and constantly shooting everything. It seems like I get the idea that maybe with Andrew's films, with this film, that Andrew, like he kept shooting or reshooting things, or kept coming back and redoing, because all of these department heads all seem to indicate like multiple shoots. That's what it just seems like to me. Or maybe, you know, he was, you know, people were being fired and hired and, you know, whatever. And then under drivers, in the credits, the drivers are like going driver. There's I counted them up. There's almost 40 drivers on this film. Drivers are people who either drive the cast and crew from their hotel rooms or their wherever to the set, and they drive, or to whatever location, or they drive the trucks. They drive the trucks full of equipment, or they drive the production vans, the trailers, you know, for cast and crew and makeup. You know, they're like truck drivers. So there are a couple different types of drivers, but 40 drivers, Like, what are they driving? You know, why were they driving? You know, I mean, there are some big location shoots. I mean, they basically recreated an entire carnival in the desert. I mean, that's incredibly, professional and big. But why do you need 40 drivers? I don't think they're like A-list movies that have this many drivers and stuff. And also the way it's laid out in the credits, it's usually way it's how they would lay this out is they'd have like driver ... person 1, person 2, person 3, person 4, and they would all be under this subheading. But in the credits to this film, it's like driver. It's like they have to list everything next to it. It's really unusual. I mean, it's like, why would you not just say driver ... and then it almost feels like this film the credits were laid out and the credits have a blur. Like, you have to lay out credits in a specific way. They can't be too fast because they'll get blurry and ugly, and then you have to lay them and you have to render them in a way. I learned this by doing credits on my own films, which I didn't follow, but afterwards I learned what I was doing wrong. You have to lay it out in a specific way so that the lines will increment pixel by pixel. Otherwise, it gets jagged and ugly. And you have to render your credits in a really special way to stop them from doing that. But in this thing, it's just jagged and, well, I mean, I think they had so many credits, so many people that it's just, but there's so many weird things I love about I mean, I love the lead actor's performance. There's a weird scene where they go to like this, it looks like a pirate like ship themed pizza place, and there's like a band on stage with like an octopus and a guy singing. It's like the Rockefeller explosion, but with like mop puppets. It's with like really bony, weird like puppets that maybe Andrew had anything. And I love the song that they play during the movie. Throughout this scene at this restaurant, this like Captain, it seems like a cross between Captain D's and Showbiz Pizza. It's the weirdest place. I mean, I wonder if Andrew must have been inspired by Showbiz Pizza or something. I have this weird feeling he was, but there's so many eccentricities and interesting things in this film, and it looks so professional and it's so good, and it's obvious that they spent a lot of time structuring this film and making it move and work. I have a feeling there's a lot of deleted scenes and stuff that were taken out because there's a lot of questions. Like the Patrick Flannery character is always talking about like he's running out of money and he doesn't have enough money and his cars are meanwhile he seems like he's going to a restaurant like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I don't know why maybe he cut down on his restaurant bill and he'd be able to have some money for everything. But you get the feeling he's like a guy who's like living off his, inheritance in this gigantic mansion with his brother, and also it feels like there's a lot of autobiographical stuff going on. I think Andrew has talked about, he talks in the producer talked in the Hollywood Reporter article about how this film was based on a lot of his own nightmares and dreams and the things that disturbed him, and it really feels like that. It feels like it's based on just his own stuff that was going on in his head, and it's a real in-depth movie like that, and it's a strange movie full of all of these questions and things going on and weird stuff. So The Evil Within, my God, what an odd movie. I just keep thinking about it. It's like Birdemic or The Room, but you give it a budget and you give it a good cameraman who can make this thing look beautiful and make it sing. And that's what this is. The end scene is incredible. The climax of the film begins with this incredible sequence, which is a combination of shooting a carnival in the desert and stop motion animation and digital effects. And then it keeps going on, and there's all these scenes of digital effects and spiders and stop-motion animation and dead corpses that turn into spiders. The end of the film is particularly crazy. It's this puppeteer scene which feels like something out of the Brothers Quay, young Meyer. It's a combination of CGI and physical effects and stop motion, and it's just, I don't think you've quite seen anything like this in like a low-budget B-movie. It takes things to another level because, again, he had, millions of dollars and the time in the world to execute all of this stuff. It's an incredible film. It's if you're interested in B-movies, if you're interested in these kind of unique personal films but made by millionaires, there's another film. The only film that I can think of that's even close to this that was made by one guy who was in production for years was Sage Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's son. He spent years making this film Vic, starring Clu Gulager, and he worked hard on that. That was released before he died, though. He also passed away, and but just like Vic, this film is a passion project. You feel the passion, and it's tragic because you also you see the talent in it. It's not a failure. It's not a bad movie. It's in fact a really great movie filled with some good performances, with some wonky dialogue, but overall, I mean, the visual sensibility of it looks polished, professional, and the meat of it, the sequences and the performance of this lead character and the way that he is seduced by this demon, who may be a real demon or may be a figment of his imagination, is intact and is good and is solid, and it's easy to see an actor being attracted to this film, not just by the paycheck, but by the vision of it, the real vision, the unique vision of this. And this film, I mean, ultimately, despite what I've said, is full of unique vision. So if you like unique, weird, wonky movies, this movie is not going to disappoint. You'll not be bored, definitely. So check it out on video demand or DVD. Ideally, in a perfect world, I'd love a Blu-ray release, but these days it's you do a high definition video on demand release and then release. There's so many movies that are just horror movies that are DVD only releases. It's kind of a little ridiculous. I think that in 2017, DVD is still so hot, people still buy them so much. But I'm considering buying this because I love it so much, and I love it. I'd love to see a lot of behind the scenes and see. There's probably so many stories, probably off-color stories that cannot be told about the making of this movie and the wild stuff behind it. But I love it. What's on the screen is almost enough for me. It's a wild, great film.